So the foundation was established in 1998 by Leonardo and his mother, Irmelin, who's here with us today. They chose specifically to focus on environmental issues because Leo has had a lifelong connection with both nature and wildlife. As Leonardo and the foundation developed relationships with certain core organizations such as the NRDC and Global Green USA, he began to lend his image and voice to their events and campaigns. Leonardo was one of the first celebrities to bring attention to the issue of climate change. He has a genuine interest in engaging with the public in these issues facing our planet because he knows that the only way that we can really create change is if humanity rises to the challenge. Over the years, he's made several appearances on major national shows such as Oprah and The Today Show to discuss climate change and to advocate green solutions. More recently, in 2007, he released The 11th Hour, a full-length documentary about the state of our planet. The foundation spearheaded the production and assisted with the action campaign that rolled out in conjunction with the film. So with that, I'm going to hand it over to Thomas and Brian, who were the two people who brought this project to us and the possibility of working with Suzanne in the Digital Content Lab.
So I'm Brian Gerber. I've worked with the Leonardo DiCaprio Foundation for a number of years and was fortunate enough to be a producer on The 11th Hour. One of the things really learned in that process, when we released The 11th Hour in 2007, we also created a what we call a social marketing campaign called 11th Hour Action that was really utilize the power of the internet to organize people, give some folks a place to go and take action and participate after they saw the movie. This was really, in 2007, it was really the beginning. People were just starting to really work with social media platforms and social tools, and we really started to see, how there's real power in that, and it can extend the life of a project. And it was that success with the 11th Hour Action campaign that really inspired us when we started talking about where we wanted to go next with Leo's digital space, about ways that we can use a lot of social media tools and also work very effectively with a lot of collaborators. So it was sort of that inspiration that led us to the lab. Felt like what we really needed was a place, an innovative lab experience to really incubate this kind of idea. So that's how we really brought the project into the lab, and I'll let Thomas talk about how that came about.
I had been a mentor at the lab 2 years ago for a project with the Corporation of Public Broadcasting, and some of the things we learned there was that how complex and difficult it is to reach young people. So when Suzanne and the lab were kind enough to take us in, we were very, very curious about the type of team Suzanne would be able to put together for this, and we would like to ask her to tell us a little bit, because we just felt it was such an unusual combination of people.
David Orr is a gentleman who is a well-known author. He's a professor of environmental studies at Oberlin College, but it's environmental studies and politics. The guy is actually really quite tuned in and was really informative and helped us to start filling in some blanks. And Philippe Cousteau, who had been in the lab last year, they'd done a project with one of his endeavors called Earth Echo International, and which actually launched and was part of the Warped tour this year, so that was kind of exciting. But anyway, Philippe very much cares about water, and as we started to look at each of these groups, we realized that they have very different interests, very different concerns, and so the beautiful thing about what's happened with the Leonardo DiCaprio Foundation is that it has good relationships with so many of these groups, and so we started to envision a kind of a hub environment, something where you would have something where you could do this outreach to these other groups in a way that really allowed for a kind of gracious and generous exchange, and something that might really work out. And so this started to look a little bit game-like. So as we thought about it, I thought, well, who are the smartest game people out there these days? And we made a few calls. Matt Wolf was willing to come and join. 2 years ago, he won an Emmy for an ABC show called The Fallen. It was a mini-series, and it was an alternate reality game that pulled in huge numbers. Lots of people played, and they played well after the series ended, so we saw that it had great success, and he just has that kind of a mind. And Jesse Alexander actually won the Emmy last year for his work on Heroes, for the game that happened there, and we said, what if these two guys would both come on board and give us advice? And so they did, and so we were really excited about that. But underlying all of this, and prior to all of this, I had first called in David Gale, who as head of new media over at MTV, and we've been working with him for as long as I've been director of the lab. And he brought in Kenny Miller, who is also at MTV. And so we suddenly had this kind of critical mass of these individuals who all had great knowledge in their own areas about how to reach young people, how to distribute content, how to articulate the environmental issues and try to find something that might work. It was at that point that the crew over at Oishi Creative agreed to come in and help us make some visual sense of the whole thing. So it was a really interesting thing where we let the team grow organically.
And on our end, it was tremendous to actually be able to have the time to grow organically into that. I mean, I also want to, Marc Johnson was instrumental.
And Marc Johnson, of course. I was staring at him, so I thought I had said his name.
Because it allowed us to focus on two or three things that we identified earlier, but really couldn't understand how to figure out, which was gearing it towards the a young audience, and obviously leveraging Leonardo's celebrity status, but also figuring out a way how to have everything revolve around sustainable issues.
After working on the 11th hour, it became really clear that Leonardo, because of who he is, can kind of serve as the core collaborator, and he can really inspire different organizations to come together and work for a common cause. And so that was, what we settled on, was finding a framework where we could partner with a multitude of different organizations that we work with on a yearly, daily, monthly basis, and find a way to present a challenge out to the audience that was really actionable.
These organizations are so well established and doing such good work, and that what the power that we can really lend to them is to really highlight it and bring a lot of attention to it.
I mean, this isn't always the case, but typically all these organizations are doing incredible work, but they're all struggling to sustain themselves, sustain their work, and they're not necessarily focused on collaborating with other organizations. So they have to make their voices distinct. So Leo's site and his presence can kind of serve as the core collaboration.
So what we came up with was, in issuing out these challenges, that we would have rewards and incentivize the participants to want to engage. And the different tools that we would use would be a call to action video, and then as people would come back to engage, they would get at different levels of engagement, they would get different kinds of rewards. Some of those kinds of things could be, personalized thank you messages, sent to your phone, custom ringtones, and then even for people who get especially engaged, allow them different kinds of access back into the DiCaprio Foundation website, for instance, moderating forums and things like that. So there were different levels of engagement to try to bring people in.
A lot of the different experts that we spoke to who have been involved in viral campaigns have all said, it sounds silly, but even just, getting a green star for a small contribution or a one-word comment, incentivizes people and gets them excited to continue moving up and, participate more and more.
As we started breaking this down in actual action items, and started looking at our what we kind of perceived as the levels of participation, we called the first category lurkers. Suzanne coined that term. People who, very, very desirable people, because that's the largest, that's going to be the largest audience for most web environments. They, won't really engage much, but they'll be around and still digest some of the information you're putting up there. And our job would be to slowly start pulling them into the experience and turn them into members and entrants and leaders, as we coined them.
Part of the idea of the challenges as well is to connect them. The idea of connecting all these organizations as sort of like a hub of environmental sustainability activity would be to connect the different challenges so that people could join one challenge and see the other and participate in them. And then very important, and I think maybe you might speak to it, would be the widget idea that we had.
That possibly the main transporter for challenges that live across various platforms and partner sites would be a very, very clever co-branded widget that changes its offering and its content with every new challenge, but becomes kind of our evangelist or our messenger.
Yeah, I mean, the purpose is not to, how many people can we get to Leonardo's site? That's not the purpose. The purpose is to create change and inspire people to take action. So that viral video challenge can go anywhere. It should live everywhere.
We also very early on decided that this would be all kind of out of the box technological solutions. Today, these systems, whether it's Twitter or YouTube or everything useful, including Ning, you know, where you customize your social network, all that stuff can now be networked and connected to a way that just wasn't possible 2 years ago. So we never felt the need to build that.
Yeah, I mean, I think that ties back to the theme that Suzanne sort of kicked off the day with, which is that there's no excuses anymore. The technologies are out there, you can utilize them. And also that leads to another advantage, which is that you're then so flexible that whenever the next Twitter or whatever the next thing is, you're not tied into something that you already built in the past, that you're fluid and you can grow organically and move to those other platforms.
Our estimate is we would be 2 or 3 months away from actually having a launchable product.
We're extremely grateful to have 3 different organizations here who are going to talk to you about the challenge that they came up with on the fly, which is impressive. So the first one that we're going to introduce is Global Green USA, and it's Ruben Aronin and Troy Simpson.
Global Green USA is the American arm of President Gorbachev's Green Cross International that was founded more than 15 years ago to help foster a global value shift and reconnect humanity with the environment. We focus primarily on the climate crisis and providing smart solutions to the climate crisis. As Justin mentioned, in 2002, Global Green teamed up with Leonardo DiCaprio and generated more visibility for an international environmental conference in Johannesburg, the Earth Summit, than any other action that happened during the conference or pre or post. And if we had only had the sophisticated social marketing networks that we do today, we would have been able to sustain citizen engagement. We, at that point, were able to generate thousands of phone calls and letters to the White House. But today we have the ability to really sustain engagement with the public. But in addition to using the bully pulpit of celebrity and helping to engage the public and policymakers through their visibility, we're working on the ground in communities across the country to help advance smart climate solutions and green building initiatives. And Troy's going to talk a little bit about that effort.
On a day-to-day basis, what does Global Green do? I say we work basically at the meeting point of sustainability and the built environment. And I can separate that work into 3 categories pretty quickly: cities, schools, and affordable housing. And an example of each: for cities, we worked with the City of Los Angeles through an 18-month stakeholder outreach program to create what is now the Los Angeles Green Building Program, which requires new large projects to be green and incentivizes projects to go beyond that. For schools, we are the third-party sustainability advisor to LA Unified School District. They have a $20 billion new construction program, and we help to ensure that all those new schools are going to be meeting sustainability goals through design and construction. Affordable housing, we work one-on-one with project teams who are developing affordable housing to incorporate the fundamentals of sustainability into built projects every day. This is a photo of Los Vecinos. It's a zero net energy housing project that's just opened up outside of San Diego earlier this year that we were the technical advisor for. We're also pretty well known for our Holy Cross project. Ruben alluded to our work in New Orleans in the wake of Katrina. We're developing a neighborhood redevelopment project in the lower 9th Ward that will consist of 5 single-family homes, an 18-unit apartment complex, and a community center, proof that sustainability can be affordable and it can transform communities at the same time. So one thing that we're thinking that might be very interesting to do is, in terms of localizing climate change, is to say, well, what's the carbon footprint of the city that I live in? And so actually having an annual accumulation or total for the carbon footprint of the city of Los Angeles, for example, and then break that down by sectors and sources so you can learn more about the details of where are these emissions that are leading to global warming actually coming from. So once we've done that, we want to create a virtual network that is a sort of a personal portal or hub for climate change action at the individual scale. And that could be a personal profile, as was sort of talked about earlier today, with 2 major tracking components. First, you take that information at the city scale. Now I understand where climate change is coming from and how my city or my community is impacting that. How about myself as an individual? And so there are a lot of existing individual carbon footprint calculators out there today, but they're designed for the most part to be snapshot tools. Make some estimations about my lifestyle and what is my carbon footprint on an annual basis. But we're interested maybe in instead going from the perspective of something like Mint.com or Quicken Online, things that are tied into things that are becoming automated. So, instead, for example, you could be tied into your utility bills. So you can see, how does my energy use, my heating and water use and all of that contribute to carbon emissions throughout the year, ongoing. The result would be then a communications tool at the individual scale that mirrors the city scale. So what's my ongoing carbon footprint? How can I track that? How is it changing over time? And also, what's my commitment? And am I involved enough? Am I engaged enough? And how do I stack up? And those things could, be populated on a lot of the social networking infrastructure that's becoming more and more a part of the daily lives of so many people out there. We recognize there are a lot of challenges, a lot of questions to be asked here, and we see this as a great foundation, a great place to start, really networking and figuring out how can we do this and what do we need to do to move forward. So it's a great opportunity for us and for the foundation, so we appreciate the time. Thank you.
Next, we'd like to bring up Lori Kaufman from Tree People.
Tree People was started by teenagers in the early 1970s. So our work is about helping nature heal our cities. We unite the power of trees, people, and technology to grow a sustainable future. We believe that we can inspire behavior change. We don't need to take a gloom and doom and fear-based approach. 3 areas of our work: we have forestry, environmental education, and sustainable cities. Our forestry work focuses on LA County, but we also work in the San Bernardino Mountains and the Angeles Forest. We work on city streets, school campuses. We do fire restoration. We have 10,000 kids who come up to Coldwater Canyon Park, our headquarters, and we also work with several 100,000 teens each year through our Generation Earth program. So our approach is really share it, do it, change it. And although we have a lot of vision and our founder is still with us, our challenge really is, how do we translate our vision into a story that's compelling and can lead people to action, instead of sort of having them sort of trail off. We really want to get them engaged. So that's why we're excited to partner with AFI and the DiCaprio Foundation. We came up with kind of a short notice, 3 calls to action. We're not committed to these. They're definitely created by our education staff, and we're hoping that we can build on them or toss them out and try something new. The first is, find your place in nature. So take a picture, send it in, take a shot of a stream or a creek or even a weed that might be growing up. So it's really creating awareness and taking that first step. So the second is water catchers. Track water where it flows and harvest it. Capture it, contain it, divert it, somehow take action regarding water. And the third is planting teams. So this is really community engagement. It could be 2, it could be 3, it could be 30. Plant some trees, a butterfly garden, a rain garden, do some weeding even. Get engaged and get involved. Or do a fundraiser and then purchase fruit trees and distribute them to people where they can do the most good.
Lastly, we have 2 people from IFA. We have Donna Godomsky and we have Jeff Flocken.
Four decades ago, a group of concerned citizens banded together to stop a massive and brutal hunt for harp seals. A new breed of animal advocacy was born. From the outset, the founders of IFOR embraced the understanding that the fate and future of all animals on Earth are inextricably linked to our own. Now, more than 2 million people and 300 staff in offices worldwide support IFOR's work. IFOR finds lasting solutions to pressing animal welfare and conservation challenges. Solutions that benefit both animals and people. Together, we are gaining ground.
IFA, as you saw, we work on a variety of different animal issues and wildlife conservation efforts worldwide. The Leonardo DiCaprio Foundation asked us to talk a little bit about our challenges as an organization. One of the big ones is that despite all of our great work internationally, we're not very well known here in the U.S. When you say IFA, people don't really usually recognize who we are or what we do. Another challenge is that we have very modest resources when it comes to technology. For something like that video you just saw, we rely almost entirely on volunteers and experts who donate their work in the digital arena and production to put together our outreach and education pieces. We don't really have that kind of in-house resources. So the campaign that I'm going to talk about a little bit is our Tales for Whales campaign. This is something that was launched in Australia. And after that, it was picked up in the United Kingdom with our office there. And we just launched it here in the United States in May. It was actually rolled out in conjunction with the introduction of HR 2455, which is the International Whale Conservation and Protection Act. That bill was introduced. So we worked very closely with different representatives in Congress to get that out there and to address some different holes in policy currently on whale conservation. But to conjunction with that, we wanted to do a outreach component that shows that Americans value whales, so we can take that message to Capitol Hill. And that's how we integrated the Tales for Whale campaign. What this campaign is it has decision makers, celebrities, and everyday Americans send in pictures of themselves making a sign of the whale tail. You can see some different folks there doing it right there. And we're going to use that to take it to Capitol Hill and show Congress and other decision makers that Americans want strong protections for whales globally and here in the U.S. The next step for us is going to be taking it and trying to get mass quantity. We'd like to get 20,000 Americans to send in pictures of themselves doing the sign of the whale tail. We have a site right now, www.talesforwhales.org, where people can send in their picture and post it online with other folks who've done this. So our challenge is going to be, how do we go about getting 20,000 photos? How do we get individuals to send these images? But personally, we don't have the technology to send this viral or make it go viral, because actually I don't even understand what that means personally. But we're looking for experts to tell us how to make this into a phenomenon that people all across the country would be sending in their photos of the whale tail. So then we can take those photos and use it to really pass this Whale Conservation Act and push for stronger legislation and policies from the U.S. to protect whales. So I think that's it.
Well, thanks a lot, guys. And I know we're running a little late, but I just really quickly again wanted to thank the Suzanne and everybody at the AFI Digital Content Lab, and really thank these great 3 organizations that came out and showed us how we can take this idea and really energize it. And so look for these challenges coming to a social media platform near you this coming year. Thanks.